Black book, check. Kitty cat, check. Tea, check. We're good to go. Welcome to another video from Cardboard East. My name's Jay. I play board games from Asia and share what I find with all of you. Are you ready for Gen Con, the largest board game convention in North America? Because I know I am. And I have a list here of 40 games from Asia that are going to be at Gen Con this year. And I am super pumped, super excited to share with you about all these games. Now, I do want to say that I will also be at Gen Con. I'll be at the Broadway Games booth, booth 3035. Please feel free to stop by and say hi. If I'm busy and talking with someone and I brush you off, I apologize. I'm just busy doing work. But I love games, but I love gamers more. So please feel free to stop by and say hi. Do not hesitate. Don't be shy. Just be like, Jay, I'm like, yo, what's up? And it'll be great. I'd love it. Anyway, on to the list. This episode is brought to you by Lapsang Souchong, which is a nice smoky black tea from China. Amazing stuff. Upgrade your life today. First up from 25th Century Games, booth 1233. They'll have two games coming out. One is called Dracula versus Van Helsing. Now, this game is very similar to Golf. It was originally by Mandu Games, I believe, from Korea. Golf is an old school game. If you play like Cabo, if you play like Rat-a-tat-cat, or any of the Silver series from Broadway Games, then you'll know what Golf is. Essentially, you just have a tableau of cards, and you're trying to draw a card, and you replace the cards to make sure that you have a lower value there. One player is Dracula, one player is Van Helsing, and you're slowly, if you're Van Helsing, you're totally trying to stab away, stab at Dracula, doing enough hit points throughout the course of the game, and then he dies. If you're Dracula, you're playing like this area majority game where you're slowly turning more and more of London into vampires. And it's a really intense game that takes place, that usually ends in the third round, like right down to the wire. And it's quite fun. If you like drawing cards, it's a very tactical game. So if you're looking for something more like those, and I think this is something you might like. It's 2-player only. So it's just drawing a card, playing a card, drawing a card, replacing one of your cards, and trying to decide where you want to win and where you want to lose is always fascinating to me. So Dracula versus Helsing, I give it a thumbs up. Next up on the list is Jekyll and Hyde versus Scotland Yard, which is right up there on my shelf. And if you like 2-player trick-taking games, then whoo, that's for you. This one is designed by Gunnil, a Korean designer who specializes in 2-player trick-taking games. I think so far he's made Jekyll versus Hyde, Jekyll and Hyde versus Scotland Yard. He's done Ptolemy, he's done Hipparchus, he's done Phantom of the Opera. I think that's 5. Should be more. Anyway, you are playing as Jekyll versus Hyde, and you are running away from Scotland Yard. And what's really fascinating about this is that, well, one, I think Vintage Trade did the artwork, and it's beautiful. I do think it's kind of weird that Jekyll looks like Hugh Jackman. He totally looks like Hugh Jackman. It's a scenario game, where it's a campaign game with 10 scenarios. And it teaches you, each scenario introduces a new mechanic into the game, so the game gets more and more complicated. And so they introduce you into the game, and even like those first 3 scenarios I felt were really fascinating with what to play. But when you get to scenario 5, that's where the base game is supposed to be. And it does get more and more complicated as you progress further and further on through the story. So if you have like a partner and the two of you love trick-taking games and you're looking for a nice game that you two can play together, a nice scenario game, this is something that I think is really well done. And the Vintage Trade artwork is fantastic. Also, Hugh Jackman, 2 thumbs up. Next up is Allplay. Allplay, booth 2647. Lapsang Souchong. They have a new line of games. So what's really cool about Allplay is that they have, Allplay did a really good job about rebranding themselves. Like, I don't know if this is board game tables. I forget what their old company name is. So yeah, that's a good thing. They have like 3 box sizes. Each box size has a different price point. And they're going to be launching a $10 box game. And these are all going to be like small card games from, mostly from Japan. And they're not like big, boisterous games. They're just small, tiny card games at a small price point. So the first one that I'm going to talk about is called Fairy. And I played this at Origins. And it was a lot of fun. You have a card you're holding here, and you're trying to get to 0. And You'll do 1, 2, 3, and you're trying to guess what the next card is. And you're doing these hand gestures to show what you think it is. And the hand gestures are not like gang related, but it is fun. If you can guess when the fairy card is coming up, it is a huge, huge rush. So fairy is a lot of fun. It's a real-time game though, and a party game, so it depends on what you like. I really enjoyed that game. I had a lot of fun with it. Next up is Lure, which is a reimplementation of dice fishing, roll fish. Oh my goodness, dice fishing, roll and catch from Japan, and it's basically just just being very bravado, being like, I can get this fish in 3 dice. I can do it in 2. I can do it in 1, and then you roll your die and to see if you can catch the fish. Each fish that's there on the center of the table has like a certain number on it and certain stipulations. So you have to roll a 6. You have to roll like a 2 and a 3. You have to roll dice that add up to 7, a minimum of X amount of dice. Players all have like X amount of D6s, like a D10, a D12, like a D4, and they all do something different. And so it's a really, really fun party game. I believe that they'll be including the expansion, and if you have an option of getting the lure or lure and the expansion, always get the expansion, because the expansion adds 2 fish into the center as opposed to just 1, and that changes so much of the gameplay. You really get into the psychology of the other players. Fantastic game, and you get a bucket of dice, so totally worth it. The next up from Allplay is Panda, which is, I love saying that, Panda, which is a reimplementation of, it's up here, Cat Poker. Now, Cat Poker is a card game where you're trying to get like a certain hand. And there's a little player aid here in front of you that says like, if you have this, then you'll win the game. But you have to try and create a hand of certain cards. They can be AA, BBB, or AA, BB, CC, lots of different combinations. But you're drawing a card and playing a card. You're drawing a card, putting it in your hand, and then discarding a card. Occasionally, if someone will discard an A, then there'll be a draft. So then all of a sudden, I have to give a card from my hand to the player to my left, and I take a card from the player to my right. So there's a little bit of wonkiness there. And you have to try and create the hand that you want while trying to make sure that you don't mess up and trying to mess up other players. So just really interesting. Also, the composition of the deck is known to everybody. And so seeing which cards have been passed, remembering which cards have been passed, is all part of the game. Now, I really liked Cat Poker. I love the artwork because it's done by Cy Beppo. Does a fantastic work. But I think I like the Panda art more. Really cool grab there. Out of those 3 games, I think Panda might be my favorite. Although Lure is just so much fun, man. I think it's really fun. Lapsan Suchong. Next up, we have Arcane Wonders, booth 629. They have 3 games. Buffet Boss comes from Singapore, and it is a hoot. Essentially, you have like this little plate here made of a meeple, and then you see these cards, and you're taking meeples and trying to stack them on top of each other. Party game, dexterity game, and you're trying to get it as high as you can without toppling over. But you have like these weird shapes, like a banana, a grape, all these different fruits there, and it's really fun. As silly and stupid as it is, it's a lot of fun. The whole idea is that like it's the Chinese buffet, and you're trying to get as much food on your plate as you can because, that's how buffet is done. I think it's a lot of fun. Great family game. Moving on is Ito, and this is one of the, is it up here? Yeah, it is up there. It is one of the best party games from Japan, probably the best one. Actually, no, I think I like Natsume more. Anyway, it is a really good party game. It's a crime that I didn't include it in my top 100 list. If I did, it would probably be in the top 20. It is fantastic. It's one of these games where you always learn about the other players in the game. So essentially, you're going to get a card, and it's going to be 1 through 100. No one knows what it is, and it could the prompt could be something as, it's always random. It could be something like, I don't know, things you would expect to find in the freezer. And maybe if you have a card that's close to 100, 100 is something that you expect to find in the freezer, and then 1 would be something that you do not expect to find in the freezer. And so you're trying to figure out what it's going to be. Like socks might be somewhere in the teens, right? Pizza will probably be in the high 90s. But you're thinking, what is something that could or could not be? It could be like, I don't know, an action figure. At least if you were a kid, that's what I did with mine. So it's just really interesting to see those choices, and then trying to figure it out, trying to get everyone's choices and line them up in order is always fun. Lots of arguing, lots of debate. Great time. Ito gets 2 huge thumbs up. Next one is one of the best games that ever come out of Taiwan, and that is Vegetable Stock. I'll say this about Vegetable Stock. People will still be playing it in 5 years. That's a game you'll play in 2030. It's very simple. You have cards with 3 vegetables on them. It can be like carrot, carrot, broccoli, 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 tomato. And there are just cards out there, and you just pick one, put it in your hand. And then the card that's not drafted is going to affect the market. So if that card that wasn't drafted, let's say it's 2 carrots and a tomato, well then the carrot stock goes up by 2 and the tomato stock goes up by 1. Really simple. Do that like 6 times and that's it. That's the game. You're going to look at your hand, look at the valuation of the stock, and then if the carrots are at 6, then each carrot that you have will be 6 points. And then you just do your math and then that's it. Super simple, but a lot of fun. And you have like these really fun, interesting decisions there. What makes it really fun though is that if it maxes out, if the stock value of a vegetable reaches a certain limit and it goes up again, it's going to crash and start down at 0 again. You got to build it back up. So there's this little bit of attention there about which ones you're getting, and trying to remember which cards people drafted is always fun. Ito, Vegetable Stock, great games. I do want to circle back a little bit, back to 25th Century Games, booth 1233. They picked up a lot of Korean games from Plate. Platey? P-L-A-Y-T-E. Platey. Anyway, Platey makes small box games, and they got famous because their games were magnets, and they could unfold out, and there would be the board. And then you fold it up, toss the components in, and you're good to go. And that was their model for a little bit. They haven't continued that. Some of them are just boxes now, but they make some really good games, things that are visually stunning. They might not be like super great, amazing games, but they are visually stunning and fun. And that's the most important thing. Some of them that are going to be there that I could tell you about are Vampire Queen. Vampire Queen is a ladder climbing shedding game that plays up to 12 players, I believe. Really cool artwork. I forgot a famous designer designed that. I can't remember off the top of my head. Tassel Banana is one of their earlier ones. That's the ones that was probably earlier games that was really successful. Great banana components there. I haven't played it. Penguin Party is a re-implementation of an older Knizia game. We are in a Reiner Renaissance, and it's great to see that there, but the artwork looks fantastic. It looks super cute. Definitely pick it up. Jalapeno is a trick-taking game that I have not played, but I love a good pun, and I love jalapenos, so I should probably check this one out. The next one is Circus Flacati, which is this flea circus push your luck card game that came, I think, it's the 90s or early aughts. It's an old game, and is also, I believe, a Reiner Knizia game. I can't remember, but I have never played the old school 90s one, but this is a nice game from what I've been told, and some of the people that do love it today, still today, 20 years later. So now it has a fresh coat of paint, and it looks really cool, so I think you should definitely grab that if you're into like these old school card games, which I am. Now we go to Barrel Aged Games, great name by the way. Booth number 2809, and they have Plantopia. Plantopia comes from Singapore, and it is a game about building plants, and the puns on the cards are fantastic. There's a card with a tree, and it's like trigonometry. I love it. You can have a lot of good times laughing at the puns on the cards. Essentially, you're having cards and you're playing these cards down to kind of feed this plant to get it to grow. Once it grows, it scores, and that's it. And there are a few other little rules there. Trying to think of it as like Race for the Galaxy, but like stripped super easily down and to make it super approachable with cute art, with great themes. Like, just look at the artwork of this game and you will laugh because they're fantastic. Trigonometry is, I think, my favorite card. Moving up to Bezier Games, booth 3035. That's me, I'll be there. So take this with a grain of salt. But we do have Colossal Cat in the Box, which is the colossal version of Cat in the Box. And you get this little kitty as the first player marker. Look at how adorable he is. He stays on my desk. I love him. He's great. They'll only have 200 copies of that game, and once they sell out, then it's officially out of print. So if you want to get a copy of that game, if you're on the fence, just grab it, play it, don't like it, sell it. Someone will definitely buy it because there are only 200 copies outside of the Kickstarter. Bright Eye Games. This is a publisher I've never heard of. Booth 1553. They picked up a few games from Asia. They picked up Ponzi Scheme, which is about being in a Ponzi scheme and run the most successful Ponzi scheme. This is one of the best games to come out of Taiwan. It's definitely one of the most successful games to come out of Taiwan. And how do I feel? The vibes on this game are that what is it saying? I think Tom Vassell said he felt like you're jumping out of an airplane and then you are making deals to see who can get the parachute because there's only one. And it definitely kind of feels like that. There's this growing tension in the game. You're running out. It's just running out of money, making shady deals with people, just being mean. It's a mean game. But if you like finance games and being mean, this is something that you might be interested in. Sumo. Sumo is a two-player trick-taking game, and it's a very, very simple trick-taking game. There aren't that many cards per hand, and it's over really quickly. The cool twist of the game is the world building. You get like these little character sheets where it's like this very vanilla sumo wrestler, and then you could draw and like give him a mustache, give him a scar, give him like this cool tattoo on his chest or color his underwear or something like that. And then you can call him whatever you want, like Bob. And then you play Bob, and then when you lose with Bob, you write it down. You win with Bob, you write it down. And then Bob has his own record sheet. So you eventually have like this little stable of sumo wrestlers in your box. And it's interesting. Like the world building doesn't affect the gameplay at all, but it's just there. And it's really neat that it's there. I kind of like that it's there. Moving on is Tokuri Taking. Tokuri Taking is dinosaurs drinking sake. So what it is that you have, Tokuri is like the little sake vessel. And you could, when you have it play your cards, you can play a card face down and it'll be a Tokuri, which would be all the way up at 10. And then if you play another card face up, then you're drinking out of everyone's Tokuri. If you get it right at 0, has to be exact. Can't be too much, too high, has to be that Goldilocks area. Then you'll finish that completely, and then you'll take that Tokuri and score points for it. And it's fun. It's not something that I would always play, but if someone wanted to play it, I'll be like, dude, let's do it right now. And it's fun getting that math done, like trying to make sure you're drinking a little bit of everyone, but not too much, so it's easy for someone else to grab and get it. And there's a lot of fun tactical moments in the game that I would say. Next up is Broadway, booth 169. They'll have 2 games. The first one is This Bed Is Mine, which is very adorable vibes. It is essentially a dog and a cat, 2-player game, fighting over control of the bed. And it's like area control, area majority, where you're playing your tokens, and your tokens are shaped like the numbers, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And as you place them down on this, grid, you can create like these little structures, kind of like Go, where you play like this little rectangle here, and then you're gonna count up the borders of your tokens that you use. I use an 8 and a 7, so that's 15. You use a 1 and a 3, that's 4. I have a higher sum, therefore I win control of this area. I score 1 point per square. And it's, yeah, like I said, really simple, but it's really adorable. And like it comes with these cute little tokens for like a mouse, a yarn, pretty neat. I think it's a really good family game that you want to play. It's like Boop with math in the nerdiest, funnest way possible. They also have Lifeboats, which is one of the meanest games I've ever played. And it's a re-implementation of that classic game of Lifeboats. So if you're looking for Lifeboats and you just want to you have friends that you really want to be mean to because you have passive aggressive issues, Lifeboats is the game for you. I had someone throw water in my face because of Lifeboats in Taiwan. I just did like a really mean thing to them, and the guy kicked them out. They were so angry and took it a little too seriously. So I'm hesitant to play Lifeboats again. Not that I'm afraid of water. I love water. I wish I could dive in the pool right now. Capstone Games, booth 1743. Capstone Games have Tam Gram City, which is another game by Rainer Knizia. I would think it was originally done by Korea Board Games, a huge publisher out of Korea, yes. Tangram's City is you are placing tiles onto the board. I got a chance to play this at Origins. It is super chill, a very, very chill game. There aren't many layers to the game. Everyone has a different board and everyone has their own tiles. So I'm not sure why they didn't player color the tiles. Like these are the blue, yellow, green, red players, because that would make it easier to sort. Because right now you have to put it all into separate bags. But it is a very chill game. And if you like tile placement games that are very, very chill, then this is definitely one that I would recommend. All the tiles are double-sided, like house or garden, and you have to make sure that there's an even amount of house and garden as you build your city and try to make everything fit. And you're trying to make these little holes early on so you can score points, and the bigger the rectangles, or not, the bigger the rectangle shape that you have, the earlier you'll be scoring points. So it's all about rectangles. Blue Orange Games, 1901. They have Shadow House Masquerade. Now, if you were to ask me, Jay, in China, what's the most popular game in China? The answer is party games. Jay, Hong Kong, what's the most favorite game there? Party games. What's the most popular game in Thailand? It's a party game. And party games are just huge in China and huge in Japan back in the day. Now, Shadow House is originally, it's a Taiwanese game they picked up by Blue Orange Games, but it was originally a Japanese game. Just huge story here. But it is one of the earlier one of the earlier party games from Japan, and it plays at a smaller play count, like 4 or 5, because tables are small in Japan, and it's a really good game. It's old. Like when you play it, you can definitely see how, I don't want to say old, I want to say clean. It's definitely clean design. There aren't that many super layers and chrome there. There's just a very clean design, and it's fun. But if party games are not for you, then this is something that I don't think is going to change your mind. But if you are into party games and you want to see like this genesis of party games, definitely check out Shadow House Masquerade. Coolest news is that Board Game Nations will be at Gen Con. They are a publisher out of Taiwan, and they're doing lots of cool, exciting stuff. Booth is 2957. They have 3 games that are going to be there. My Life Be Like. I have not played, so I can't really speak to that. But it does look like an interesting party card game, like a card game version of Life that's a little mathier, a little more gamier than the board game of Life. Next up is Peely, which is one of the best board games out of Asia last year. Peely is basically puppet theater, kung fu, soap opera. And if you don't know what that is, you can check out some of my videos. I think the top 10 board games of last year where I talked about Peely and what it is. But like, do you know Thunderbirds? Like in North America, old school stuff for the 60s? Well, they did that in Asia, but with kung fu. And it's just puppets. And when they fight, they use CG special effects. In the 80s, it was like the most popular TV show in Taiwan. It was huge. So Peely is the board game version of that in 2 halves. First half is like this Puerto Rico style mechanic where I take action A, I get the stronger version of it, people get the weaker version of it, and you're gathering things. You're either gathering like knowledge, you're getting like spells so you could harness your chi a little bit better, you're learning new techniques, you're getting artifacts, you're befriending people. There's this huge like grinding moment here, like kind of like where you're in the JRPG and you go to a local village and you go outside and you're just grinding and grind away, getting stronger and stronger and stronger before you get to the big dungeon. Right? That's the first half of the game. Second half of the game, the board flips over and it becomes a tactical battle game where all your characters get to fight each other because you spent the first half of the game grinding. And it's just wild that there's this huge flip there. And what's really cool is that like you play a 4-player game, your score from the first half is your HP for the second half. So the highest ranked player and the 4th ranked player are going to be one team, and then 2nd and 3rd ranked player are going to be another team. And then it's just, boom, you're just fighting left and right. And it is so cool. It's not for everyone. It definitely gives me like Fantasy Flight Games, FFG games vibes from like the teens, like the 2010s. Like that area of Fantasy Flight, it feels like that, which is my favorite era of Fantasy Flight. Up next is Pantosaurus Games, booth 215. Hi, Molly. And that is Infiltrators. Infiltrators is a game that I didn't think was going to get licensed in the States. It comes from Hong Kong. It's a deduction game. Really solid game. And it's basically everyone gets a card in front of them, and maybe that's like a red 5. And then I'm going to play cards down in front of me. They'll be like, okay, it is this card. Or if I turn it horizontally, then it's not this. So maybe you know, oh, yes, it is red. Or maybe it's a 5, or it's like this. Okay, it's not blue. It's not 1 through 3, And there's a deduction aspect to it. Like I play a card, you play it, you have to play it. I play a card down in front of me to give you information. And eventually, you're gonna deduce it to a point where someone's gonna take a gun. There's a gun in the game, not a real gun, it's a cardboard gun. Take the gun, point at the go red 5. And then maybe you're right, maybe you're not. And then if you're wrong, then you end up using one of the bullets and there's an X amount of bullets. This is like the Crew, where there are like 25 scenarios or so, and each one gets progressively more and more difficult. What's super cool about this game is the film noir look to it. It just looks rad. It looks so rad. The artwork is fantastic. The scenarios get to build up and you get to have like this little bit of a story about what's going on and infiltrators. I think it's a really cool grab. I'm really happy that it was brought over. A really cool card game that I believe was released last year, but I think it's a really solid release for this year. Pantosaurus Games picked it up. Good job on that. Renegade Games, booth 1619, has Veil of Eternity. I believe David from Man vs. Maple said it was his favorite game of last year or the year before, and it's a really solid game. It is an engine building game with, I don't know, like maybe 80, 90 different like unique cards, and they all trigger off of each other. It's just cards come out, you draft them, and you build an engine. That's pretty much the game, but every single combination is broken beyond compare, and it's fun to explore that in the game. It's like, oh, you have that combination? That's broken? That seems nuts. And everyone's saying the same thing about your combination. And you can play the game several different times, and each time you're discovering a new combination out there. Really solid game. I only played it recently, and so it didn't make my lists. Wonderful World Board Games from Taiwan, booth 1356, is coming out with a lot of games. They have Touch It, which I'll teach you in 5 seconds. You have a card, there are 4 images on it. You stick your hand underneath it, there's textured, and you have to guess which of those 4 it is. If you guess it right, you get points. You guess it wrong, you lose points. And that is the game Touch It. Super ridiculously easy and clean design, but a really good amount of fun. There is Rubber, Paper, Scissors, which I have here, but it was destroyed because it didn't make the trip when I moved across the Pacific. This is an excellent job of blending tic-tac-toe and rock, paper, scissors, and somehow it just works. It's not a game that I'm always going to reach for, but it's a game that I'm always going to be wanting to play because it's astounding. You got to try it to see how well it works. Next up is Fashion Police, which is really a Japanese game. It is so cool. The main mechanic of this game, you have like these little cutouts, like this little square piece of paper with a cutout of a shirt or a dress. And then you have all these fabric squares that go underneath it, so it gets layered. So it's like you have a shirt, you have a blue shirt, now you have a red shirt, you have a camouflage shirt, you have a shirt with straws and stripes, you have a different shirt of like Hello Kitty. Just really cool stuff. And this is the Taiwanese version that got licensed. It's really, really cool. It's a fun game. The gimmick works. But probably the biggest highlight from that booth is, it's this one, Lone Wolves, which is a re-implementation of this game, which is 4 Clans Conflict. It is a 2-player area control game, and it is really solid. It is not for people who are new into trick taking. This is a game that will grow with you. I think that when you play the game, you have to play it. I didn't like it the first time I played it, and then the third time I played it, I fell in love with it because I finally saw everything. I was seeing the connections, I was recognizing the patterns, I was able to make calculated risks and push in certain areas. Really solid game, lots of good layers there to explore. Moving on. Hot Banana Games, Hot Banana 2319. They are not from Asia, but the founders are Asian, and they have a game called Moon Bunny, which is about a bunny on a moon, and that's... I guess like to most people, they don't understand what's up with that. But it's from the Mid-Autumn Moon Festival. And there is a story, it's a love story. It's like basically woman and a man, the woman goes to the moon, and the man stays here. And then like once a year, they can connect with each other. And also like her companion on the moon is also this little jade rabbit that's there. The crater is supposed to be him using like a mortar and pestle. I forget exactly. But it's a game about that, which is really cool. They're the ones who came up with Steam Up, which is the dim sum game with like a 3D toy effect. Really cool table presence. So I think that's really worth checking out if you're interested in that like Asian themed games. Next up is Office Dog, booth 809, and they have River of Gold. This is also not from Asia, but it's an Asian themed. I believe it's called River of Gold because it's the Huang River, which means yellow, and in Chinese, yellow metal is one of the ways you could say gold, and I believe it's them trading on that. The production of this game looks off the charts. It looks beautiful. I definitely want to play that. I think it looks really, really rad. But here at the very end, we have Synapses Games, booth 1521, and they have Yokohama. Yokohama has been out of print. Yokohama, I believe, was my #2 game from Japan in my top 100 games from Japan list. It is one of my favorite games out there. It's super simple. You either drop workers or you move your boss. That's it. And from that comes like this huge resource management game. Fulfilling contracts, trading resources, go here, trade that, do this, build a house here, get a bonus here when you do that, build a house there, get a bonus when you do that, someone else goes there, you get a bonus. Really fun game that just starts small, like a little pebble going downhill, and it's just steamrolls into this giant decision-making tree. Love it. And it's been out of print for a long time. They picked it up, changed a few of the assets, and now it's out and available. People who have their deluxe version of the game, I'm going to reach out to them, see if I can get a review copy of it, because I think it's a really solid game that everyone should be playing. And now you have a chance to play the game. Awesome. Synapses Games also has a Tanuki game, which has Tanukis wearing pants, which I think is just wrong. Tanukis shouldn't wear pants. Because if you know anything about Tanukis, they don't wear pants. Anyway, moving on to the next one is, last but not least, is Oink. I don't need to say anything about Oink. I mean, there are a lot of games from Oink. I have like the best and worst of Oink, games I thought were the best, and the games that I let go off into the distance. And they're at 2135 is their booth number. The best games on there are, of course, Scout. My taste on Scout has kind of waned. I like the original art, blue and orange. Purple and orange just don't go well together, in my opinion. That aside, you know all about Scout. Startups is a really solid game. Still really good. Tiger and Dragon, really solid game. Still really good. Masked Men, still a really good game. Definitely grab those. I think those three are like one of my 3 favorite Oink games. But there's your list. There it is. Tons of great games from there. This here is Gloomhaven Bugs and Buttons. Really solid solo dungeon crawling game. I use this to play and also to hold my little black book here. Woo! That's it. That's the whole list. Those are like the 40-ish games from Asia that'll be at Gen Con. Once again, I will be at Gen Con. I'll be at booth 3035 at the Bitewing Games booth. Look for the giant frog in the sky, and I'll be there. So if you want to stop by and say hi, I would absolutely love that. I love chatting with people. I love games, but I love gamers more. If you like what you see here and you want to see more, please consider liking and subscribing or joining my Patreon. I'll have weekly videos out there that are exclusive just for Patreons. And that way, patrons on Patreon. Patreon, you know who you are. And they'll have all that content that I'll give them to them weekly. So definitely check that out. And I'll see you at Gen Con.